Today we're announcing an additional 7 projects that we're funding in 7 states, an investment of about $35 million in expanded fertilizer capacity. The states of California, New York, Oregon, Tennessee, Wisconsin, Virginia have projects. There's also a project here in the state of Iowa. Let me just briefly talk about the Iowa project as an example of what we're doing. This $35 million in these 7 projects helps to fund an expansion of our fertilizer capacity in the country, and also allows us the opportunity to develop new ways of fertilizing to reduce costs, and also a better understanding of when and where and how to fertilize. We know that there are a lot of acres out there that probably we may be over-fertilizing. As we develop sensor technology and information, we can do a better job of the fertilizers that we have. In Maquoketa, Iowa, there's a facility called the Quality Flow Environmental LLC. It's a company that's going to receive a grant from USDA of $4.7 million. And what they're going to do is they're going to develop and create a thermochemical manufacturing facility that will make fertilizer from dairy waste. There are a lot of dairy operations up there in northeast Iowa, and an opportunity to convert their dairy waste into fertilizer. This will expand the capacity here in northeast Iowa of about 540,000 tons of fertilizer is what they are hoping to be able to build and produce from this facility. We have to date funded 64 projects within this fertilizer initiative, investing $286 million. These projects are located in 32 states. An important opportunity. We're going to see about 5.5 million tons of fertilizer now being produced in the U.S. And we're just beginning this process. We have more projects that we're in the process of reviewing from an environmental standpoint, and sure that over the course of the next 2 months or so, we'll be making additional announcements. We want to talk to you a little bit about farm income. And the reality is that over the course of FY 21, 22, and 23, we saw farm income at a level that actually, when you compare it to previous 3-year periods, would certainly be the best farm income in the last 50 years, and arguably perhaps ever. This year, obviously, we're seeing much lower commodity prices, and therefore, understandably, we're seeing a reduction in farm income. In fact, it's about a 25% reduction. We're in the baseball season, and I think some of us are following Aaron Judge's phenomenal career. He's probably poised to hit another 60 or 62 homers. If he does that, he obviously is having a really great year. If next year he has a 25% reduction in his productivity or his home run hitting, he'll hit 49 homers instead of 62. I think most people would still say he's having a pretty good year. The challenge in baseball is that you're comparing an individual to an individual's performance, and there are certain standards that can be met in which you can define this is a good year or this is a great year. It's more difficult in agriculture, and here's why. Because there's been a heavy concentration of the income that is generated within American agriculture. I mentioned those 3 years, and we know during the 3 years, 21, 22, and 23, roughly 85% of the income was basically received and generated and obtained by 7.5% of our farms. Now, we have about 1.9 million farms, so about 150,000 farms generated or received 85% of the income, which meant that 15% of that income was then spread over the remaining 1.7 million farms in the country. And that's why it's so difficult. When we see farm income numbers, we have to understand that it doesn't necessarily translate to every farmer receiving that level or that level of support. Just to put an even finer point on it, we're projecting $116 billion in net cash farm income this year. $116 billion. That compares to $155 billion last year. If you take that $116 billion and you basically multiply it by 85%, the 85% that 150,000 farms will receive, and you essentially averaged it out over every farm in that 150,000, they would receive about $650,000 of income. They're big operations. Certainly understandable that they would receive a significant amount, but that'd be $650,000 $50,000. If you took the remaining 15% of that farm income and you spread it out over the 1.7 million farms that aren't in that 7.5%, each one of those farms would receive about $10,000. So that's fundamentally the difference. Large farms receiving a significant amount, smaller and mid-sized farms having a harder time. And I think it's important for us, for policymakers, for the department, to understand and appreciate that distinction. Because we need production agriculture. We absolutely need production agriculture to feed ourselves and to feed the world. The challenge, I think, for any department and for Congress and for all of us is to figure out ways in which we can not only make sure that production agriculture continues to prosper and takes advantage of all this amazing innovation that you're surrounded by at the Farm Progress Show, but that we also figure out ways in which we can support our small and mid-sized farmer. Now, some folks will say, well, that's what the safety net is for, and that's why we're having this conversation about a farm bill, the necessity of having a safety net in place to make sure that farmers receive the help that they need when incomes are down or yields are down, prices are down. The problem with that is that the structure of those programs also disproportionately helps those larger farms. And that's not me saying this, it's a conservative enterprise, the American Enterprise Institute, a very conservative think tank, has done a study of the support programs and alike, and has indicated that the top 10% of producers in this country receive 60% of the benefits of the farm programs. So it's not just this, we can't just rely on the safety net to basically provide the support and help for farm families. We've got to figure out additional ways in which those farms can generate income. Because 88% of American farms and farm families have off-farm income, which is incredibly important to their continuing their operation. So the question I think we ask ourselves is simply, why is it that the farm family has to work multiple jobs? Why can't the farm work harder and generate more farm income? We like to refer to it at USDA as our more new and better market opportunities. Now, let me give you an example of what we've done on the more market opportunities. We've expanded processing capacity. We know that the big four basically control most of the processing in this country, which makes it harder for small and mid-sized producers to have a fair price. And so we've invested in over 185 different projects to expand processing capacity in this country in over 40 states. So every state, basically virtually every state in the country, seeing additional processing opportunities. Nearly $1 billion has been invested by USDA in creating more processing. We've also invested in expanded access to higher blends of renewable fuels. We've already funded 221 projects expanding E15 and E85 dispensing systems across more than 30 states in the country, so that customers have access to more higher blend renewable fuel, which obviously creates more market opportunities for farmers. We're also investing in better markets. The idea that when farmers go, or when we go to the grocery store, we spend our dollar at the grocery store, farmers on balance get anywhere from 15 to 22 cents of every food dollar. The question is, who gets the rest of the money? Well, the rest of the money goes to people who package it and process it and marketing and grocery and stocking and transporting and so forth. Well, is there a better way for farmers to get more of that food dollar? Well, yeah, there is, by being able to sell directly to their customer, squeezing the number of people in the middle, shortening the supply chain. That's why we've been investing in local food purchasing agreements and local food school purchasing agreements in all 50 states to enable farmers to sell directly to a school or to an institutional purchaser or to a food bank so that they generate a higher percentage of that food dollar. That's why we invested in over 329 farm-to-school grant programs since I've been secretary again. And why we invested in what are called local ag marketing programs, more farmers markets, more value-added producer grants that allow people to transition whatever it is they're growing, a commodity that they're growing, and transition into a more value-added proposition and then basically selling it directly to consumers. To communities to set up more local and regional food systems so that we have more opportunities for small and mid-sized producers to sell directly. And in the new market area, we're obviously focused on our 135 contracts under our Climate Smart Commodity Initiative. Already 13,000 farms and over 8 million acres enrolled in these programs. Here and on the state of Iowa, there are over 30 programs that are available for farmers in which we are paying farmers to do what they're already doing. They're already doing climate smart practices. They're already doing cover crops. They're already doing no-till or limited till. They're already doing nutrient management strategies. They're already doing rotational grazing, and we're paying farmers to do and to continue those practices. And then we are linking them up to market opportunities where they will receive a higher value for that commodity because they use climate smart practices. And that gets me to the Farm Bill. And I know that Chairman Chomsky has exercised his enthusiasm and optimism for getting a bill done. I share that hope. But I think, frankly, we're going to have to get practical about this. We're going to have to make sure that we know exactly how much resource is available for new programs and expansion of programs. And we're going to want to make sure that the programs and resources are fair. And I think the challenge with the reference price discussion is that there are obviously geographic differences between the level of support that a rice farmer would get under the reference price proposal, nearly $300,000 on average, and what a soybean producer here in Iowa would get, about $5,400. So I think there are some issues that have to be addressed and focused on. But once we get practical, I think it'll be easy for people to get into a room and hammer out the details and hopefully provide the security and stability and predictability that farmers need in order to be able to make plans now and into the future. Let me end by talking a little bit about the trade situation. It's not surprising we have a trade deficit for the following reasons. One, we have the strongest economy in the world, by far, not even close, which means more things are happening here than there are anyplace else, which means that there is a somewhat declining demand for stuff in other places where the economy is not as strong. Number two, our exports to China have dropped significantly. There are reasons for that. They pay attention to what's being said and what's being done here in the country. I've had a chance to visit with the Chinese ambassador recently. I've had a chance to visit recently with the Chinese ag minister, and they are sensitive to the criticisms that they hear from the United States, and they're basically expressing that dissatisfaction in terms of the purchasing decisions that they make. And that's why we created the RAP program at USDA. It stands for Regional Agricultural Promotion Program. And the idea behind it is to provide resources to expand the map of export opportunities, to get away from the Chinas and the Mexicos and the Canadas and the UKs and the EUs, as important as they are to us, and figure out ways in which we can expand opportunity in other markets in Southeast Asia, in Africa, and in Latin America. We've allocated $1 billion, and we've divided it into 3 years of grants. We recently announced the second tranche of $300 million. The first tranche of $300 million went to 66 organizations that will take those resources and increase their presence and increase their promotional opportunities and increase their partnerships in a multitude of countries in Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America, with the idea is that we would diversify and that we would create more export opportunities in addition to, apart from, the top 4 export markets. And the theory that we need to be less reliant on the top 4, because on any given day, in any given circumstance, we may have challenges with reference to those export markets. So that's kind of an update.